Hey guys, Chris here, and I want to do another video on semen retention. This time talking about the difficulties you can face on the journey, and you have to face yourself at the end of the day, and it's not all about these amazing benefits because this is what can lead people to give up on this journey, because they're not seeing flocks of women coming to them and endless money and opportunities. Semen retention does want you to do the work and to work on yourself. You have to become a different person to become the person who does that as well. And this retention, this energy you have, it wants to be best used, and it could be like out in wet dreams, or it could just be generally you go through flat lines in this fatigue. So my friend I was just chatting to, he's been doing this for like nearly 3 years, and he wrote a blog post on this, and he was sort of saying, the bait for people is the energy, the women, all of this sort of stuff. But when you're on this journey, the longer you go on it, these things, they don't become important as your evolution, your spiritual journey. Facing all of these things that many people will not face in this lifetime because they're not willing to face this stuff. When you see people are just escaping, they're releasing, they're watching porn, they're drinking, taking drugs, escaping, watching Netflix every night, no judgment. But when you get to the end of your life, have you really been working with your stuff? And with semen retention, particularly as I've shown on recent videos on things like full moons, very, very intense, especially if you've been doing it for a good 5-6 months or so. The full moon really does intensify. It brings up a lot of your stuff that needs to be shed, that needs to be let go, and you're on this cycle of life, which is more or less working, in that kind of moon cycle, which is something I discovered and talked about a bit more recently. But let's say you've got these core wounds of rejection, these core wounds that led you to release and led you to watch porn in the first place. That is going to come back time and time again, and deeper levels, and sometimes it can get even more intense. And once you aren't able to escape, it can become overwhelming. And when you do escape, and you never really, as you probably know, you never really do escape. That is always going to come back to bite you. And if you've ever really gone through the pain and the suffering of intense emotions, you know that you're so glad that you did, and you come out the other side feeling amazing. And as I've talked about on this video, is about quitting coffee and a lot of these other things, is all of this stuff starts to fade out and starts to come out. And these core wounds come more and more to the surface, and can intensify in ways that every time you just come back and you're like, oh, I thought I got rid of this. But you start to see this is the cycle that you go through, and you know your story, your victim story. I went to an event tonight which was about money. It was open-minded, really nice event. There's only a few people there. It was about your relationship with money. It was about just openly sharing. And myself, and you could see there's different types of people there. And I think I was sharing as I realized, when I share my story, I've shared my story so many times, and it comes out more. And sometimes people don't really know their story, or they've not shared their story, in terms of they don't know. Like, it was about money, and it was like, for me, it was about being left out. It was about being bullied. It was about not fitting into the family system. It was about no one's got my support, and all of these things. And these wounds will keep coming back. And if you're more present and you're more aware, and you face them more, you grow more. You become more conscious, more self-aware, you get more of your energy back. This thing in shamanism, which I studied a lot of, soul loss. You lose parts of your soul throughout your life, and then you have to keep reclaiming those soul parts. Like as a child, as a innocent baby, you've got a lot more of your soul, you could say. That's why when people see babies, they can't help but smile, and it's just that full life. And these things are gradually stripped away, and we reclaim those missing soul parts, which come back to us as we keep going deeper and deeper into them, and we see different parts of it. and that way we can connect to the right people, more compassion. And all of this stuff about, oh, I want to attract loads of women, it's just like, you don't want to like, what does that even mean? As you go more on this journey, as you've probably realized on the self-discovery path, you probably don't want to connect a lot of women. Yeah, physically attractive women are amazing, and very feminine women, and beauty is amazing to be around. But when you're not able to connect on the same level, and you see that maybe it's more superficial, they're maybe on their phones all the time, it becomes like and it could just be a negative, draining energy. You see that a lot more clearly. So the right women tend to come to you. You still become attracted maybe to the wrong women to fully heal. That's why you become attracted maybe to certain types of women or certain people, to fully heal. But the people you surround yourself, the quality of women you meet each time improves, as probably with most people, but not necessarily. People stick with the same people, the same relationship throughout their life, and semen retention is this shedding process. And the reason it's people come and go is because you change so much. And I forgot to mention this in my last video, but on things like Facebook, people get triggered on Facebook by seeing all these friends. You've got thousands of friends, maybe you don't, maybe you have hundreds, or you deleted a few. But for example, me, maybe there's like over 1,000, and 900 odd of these are not aligned with my path. So when I go through Facebook, I am going to be triggered, because I see people who were maybe aligned with values I was at 10 years ago. Then I realized they weren't authentic, or this or that, or they're just people I went to school with, or I knew in my neighborhood, and there's nothing really there in terms of where I'm going. This is not just like a big school reunion where you just hook up with everyone again. It's like, do people still serve you on your path? Or maybe if you do catch up, you just have a quick catch up. Yeah, this is what I've been up to. Oh yeah, I remember those days. But that's it. It's like, where are you going? Who's coming with you? Who, with women, who's the kind of women you want? And in your subconscious, you will be attracted to the wrong women still. There's a lot of work to be done, particularly around women, I feel, with men who've been more or less addicted to porn, been on their own a lot, fear rejection, and eventually there's no way around it. You do have to face those wounds, and it can just be rejection after rejection, or heartbreak. Sorry, I'm not saying this is like part of the journey. Like, there's been so many great moments, and but as I spoke to my friend who's been on this journey a long time, it's that thing in Buddhism, life is suffering. And that's not to say that most of your life, like most of my life, being present, enjoying where I am, and every day is joyful. But you're never going to fully eliminate the suffering part. And the suffering is where you grow and where the consciousness grows. And this is something, these negative feelings have to be embraced. Much like doing an ayahuasca journey or something like this, you go through the negative emotions, you come out, you experience the ecstasy, you then have a clearer view of who you are and what's going on. And what we're doing in society is like, we're just facing the strong, looking for the positive emotions, getting the negative, and then wanting to replace it with positive emotions. But then the negative emotions come back again, and maybe even stronger. And we never really deal with the situation, and we're giving our life force energy away, like through ejaculating with porn or taking drugs